here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the bi-weekly delegate call. As always, we'll have a few quick updates in regards to proposal processes to kick us off, but then we'll dive into a few other topics. If you hadn't seen it on the forum already, there was a token program multisig policy that was posted last week. And I asked Rafa to give a little presentation on the cat minter mods that we've mentioned a few times on these calls over the past few weeks as well. So we have that later on in the call. To kick us off today, we will actually, rather than starting with on-chain proposal updates, we'll be starting with some on the forum. I just reshared the call agenda in the chat. If anybody wants to follow along with the links there, I'll also be sharing the links in the chat as we go along. But I'll actually ask Raid to hop on and discuss ZIP 11, which was posted on the forum yesterday. So Raid, I will pass the mic over to you.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, I'm driving the V28 upgrade for different parts of the network. We released it on testnet today, and we're making this proposal regarding the precompiles that we're adding to ZKVM. There are four precompiles: EC Decimal, EC Parent, and ModExp. And the primary driver is the verification cost on the gateway. So we run some estimates, and like on an average size batch, we took the proof from the mainnet, and the decrease was around like 95% for the transaction cost from 6.8 to 370K. However, we'll see the real estimates once we're live on mainnet, obviously, and migrate Era and other chains on top of gateway. Other than that, developers that are using these precompiles will also see the cost benefits, and whoever deployed the contracts which are targeting or calling these addresses, they will see the cost benefit underneath. Nothing will change. Like, they don't need to do anything. Basically, it's a under the cover upgrade. So yeah. In short, this is the summary, and probably we'll go into more detail once we vote on the upgrade itself.
Got it. Ray, did you say this was already deployed on testnet?
Yeah, well, we're in stage, and we deployed we updated the ecosystem, the testnet today, and yeah, the gateway itself hasn't been updated yet.
Yes, great. Okay, awesome. Are there any questions for Raid regarding ZIP 11, the V28 precompile upgrade? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Raid, for hopping on and giving an overview there. We'll be talking about the proposal over the coming weeks as well on each call, giving an update as it progresses. But thanks for giving that overview for us here today. So next up, we will actually just to stay with ZIP updates on the forum. So once ZIP 11 is ready to be submitted on chain, I got word today that the plan is to also submit ZIP 10, which has been on the forum for a while. ZIP 10, it would be the proposal to activate ZK Gateway as a settlement layer. So it'd be kind of approving or turning on Gateway as a chain in the Elastic network. This, as we've mentioned in the past, was delayed due to the incident response and some other development priorities over the last few weeks. But ZIP, just wanted to mention that you can expect to see ZIP 11 and ZIP 10 submitted on chain around the same time. Then just to go over on-chain updates, we have 3 active proposals on chain right now. So GAP 3 was submitted a while ago now. The voting window has been open for a few days and closes on Thursday. If you have not voted yet, please go do that. It's about like 80 million away, I guess, from quorum at the moment, but there's still about a day and a half left in the voting window for that if you haven't voted yet. We also have TPP3, which is the audit reimbursement the ZIP Audit Reimbursement Program, or ZARP, as well as TPP4, which is to deactivate the cat minters for TPP1 Ignite. These are both TPP3, the voting window is already opened, and TPP4 will open by the end of the call. So really any minute or very soon. So if you haven't voted on one or all of the active on-chain proposals, you can go do that in one go, either later today or sometime this week. Any questions on any of the active or developing proposals on the forum? Yes. Anastasia?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, yeah.
I actually had a question about the proposal to authorize the Security Council to convert the ETH back into the ZK. And Alicia in the thread mentioned that it's the most straightforward way in terms of the Security Council bylaws. And I was wondering, I'm not sure if you know or who to ask. I also asked it in the forum, whether there's anyone in the bylaws preventing the Security Council from a legal perspective or making it sketchy, let's say, to keep the ETH as opposed to converting it back to ZK. Not necessarily to redirect it to another initiative directly, but let's just keep it to the treasury.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Synchus, and I know it's probably a question a lot of folks have. Just to kind of rewind a little bit, so beyond the Security Council bylaws, and this, the proposal that was submitted on chain being advised by the Security Council, but also from Guardians and others. If you will remember, we actually don't have a treasury. The ZKsync governance system does not have a treasury, and it actually wasn't designed originally to govern a treasury. It was designed to govern minting rights on cat minters. There's a bunch of information on that in the docs, but also different resources on the forum. I'm happy to also include in the call notes here. There is. I guess Alicia, based on Alicia's comments on the forum, the primary reason is the bylaws. I also know, or I saw a bunch of comments on Discord or from other community members and other places too, that they preferred or they wanted the ETH to be converted back into ZK. So I believe that was also taken into consideration when developing the proposal that is currently on chain. If there is an issue or I guess theoretically somebody could submit a counter proposal if there is enough issue taken with the current suggested path forward. But yeah, this was just the resulting proposal was based on feedback from Security Council, feedback from the community, preference, I guess, for the community that we had at the time, and Guardians and other folks involved. So that, I don't know if that answers your question directly, but just to provide a little bit more context as well.
Yeah.
There.
So when I was referring to the treasury, obviously we don't have one. I was mostly kind of like alluding to the DAO can somehow hold it. Could be a multisig or a way where in the future, like in many DAOs, there's always this concept of diversifying the treasury or switching, either in stables for operating expenses or for the sake of diversification, right? So, unfortunate as it may be, like the hack did kind of that in a very roundabout and bad way, let's say. But since the action is already done, it might make sense to just keep the. That's kind of like where I'm coming from, especially since probably in the future, as with the ZARP program, we will need ZK to be converted. So that's kind of like why I think it doesn't make sense to convert it back to ZK, only to use it to have to convert something back to ETH in the future or stables in the future again. So yeah, my question was most about whether there's any legal stuff preventing the Security Council from going down that path. Which
I can maybe answer that or like give maybe my response, and then I saw that Gabe joined the call, and so I'd love to, Gabe, without putting you on the spot, if you want to, I'd love to hand the mic to you after as well. But I would say the biggest distinction between like the ZKsync governance system and basically every other Ethereum DAO is that every other DAO has a Cayman Foundation running behind it. And so for tax purposes and also just like chill vibes, they're much more chill than, say, the Austrian association that the ZKsync association is registered as. And the kind of subsequent tax laws and non-profit laws and all that sort of stuff are just like on a completely different level to, say, Cayman law. And so I think a path forward of just like retaining the ETH somewhere in the ecosystem, the reason that it wasn't like so obvious as it might be for another DAO is just because it couldn't just, like, I think we would probably have to get legal advice to confirm that it could just sit somewhere that was like kind of closely related to the association, being the token assembly. So yeah, so that's the reason that it wasn't just like a really straightforward option. Like I said to Damasia's point, I like that was my reaction as well, to just like not convert it. But I wonder, Gabe, if you have any comments, A, as a guardian, and B, as a drafter of Security Council bylaws and other entity contracts related to the ZKsync ecosystem.
I joined a bit late, so I didn't. What's the exact
Oh,
question?
sorry, we're just talking about the GAP 3, which is authorization of the Security Council to convert the ETH and the airdrop exploit back to ZK, and basically just restore the ZKsync ecosystem back to the starting, kind of as close to the starting position prior to the incident as possible, versus there have been a couple of delegates who have kind of raised the question of like, can we just hold it in ETH instead?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. The DAO doesn't have a treasury, and there's sort of good reasons for that, because once a DAO, I mean, in fact, we don't even call it a DAO, right? We call it an assembly. But once there is sort of ownership of assets by an association of people, that's often deemed an entity for tax purposes. And so a lot of the structuring here, the minter structure, et cetera, was to avoid that. And, a benefit of that, although I will say that that's somewhat undermined by the thing I saw a little while ago of trying to sort of a little bit push all token holders to be part of the association. But a benefit of that is not to need a legal wrapper around the entire association, which in my opinion, reduces legal attack surface in various ways. There's kind of no particular entity to subpoena for certain things and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, my understanding is that it's not necessarily a straightforward no in terms of legal, but it's more of a gray area that we shouldn't really get into that much.
Yeah, it's
Probably,
a lot more work.
You'd have to assign, you'd have to get one of the entities in the ecosystem, one of the orgs, so to speak, to to hold those assets, and then probably amend their rules to have specific rules around why it's holding those assets and what it's supposed to do with those assets. And yeah, it just becomes a bit of a mess, I think.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Right. Yeah, my question's answered.
Wonderful. It's a great question, Zinkus, and to the others who raised it, as Alicia mentioned, it also came up, I think, in everybody's mind. But yeah, just given kind of all of the circumstances, this is just where the final suggestion had landed and ended up in this form of the proposal. I think it's important to remember too, or something worth mentioning, that we're also thinking about and trying to work on, Rafa and I, or Rafa more specifically, is finding ways to be able to avoid having, because minting ZK, even if it's not ETH, even like programs, if they mint ZK, which ideally we would avoid having minted ZK that isn't allocated, but it will likely happen. And to be able to return that minted amount to the token assembly, that's something that we're working on and trying to figure out how to do in the future, to avoid having to worry about discussions like this as well. So there'll be more information on that once we know a little bit more, or once we have a few more solid plans mapped out. But yeah, just wanted to mention this is hopefully also not a situation we will have often or ever again, ideally. So yeah, but thanks for raising good questions, and it's been the discussion I've seen in the forum has been really good as well. Any other questions, either in regards to TPP3 or in regards to any of the other proposals that are on chain at the moment? Okay, great. Then we will move on to the token program multi-sig policy. So we have been working on this the governance teams have been working on this in response to the airdrop claim incident that happened a few weeks ago. We have been thinking about this for a while, but it was the kind of final kick in the butt for us to finally get it shipped. So we posted this last week, or Rafa had posted, I think also post on the forum as well to announce it, but this is housed in the ZKsync Association Governance Resources repo. It is a token program multi-sig guidelines doc. And it is essentially meant to be there as a guide or a resource for any team who is developing a token program, who is planning to have to or like need a multi-sig involved in that program in any way, either to manage assets or a contract. This is essentially a guide that folks can reference to help create those multi-sigs. And also, this was based on a few different resources, or just looking at kind of industry standards. I know how to multi-sig was a very useful resource on this, and just to set some security standards around any multi-sig that will potentially touch any ZK that is governed by the token assembly. So you can check that out here as well. Rafa, I see your hand up.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention, like, if you think about this in a bit of a broader narrative, we can imagine these like guidelines kind of extending what we have, but a big component of this is we really want to minimize, we want to have just the right amount of guidelines and really focus on like on-chain enforcement of like governance. So we'll see how this turns out. If people can like provide feedback, and maybe there's a point in the future where these types of guidelines are not necessarily directly enforced, but maybe on-chain monitored, at the very least from the governance ecosystem. And maybe depending on how we move forward with this, we might see, for example, gaps that look at audit standards or other types of security standards that increase the level of legitimacy or stamp of approval by the token assembly in terms of how these are executed. So something to keep in mind in terms of the broader arc of where we're going.
Yeah, it's a good point, Rafa. Yeah, you know our motto, mechanics over multi-sigs, but the point here was to understanding that there will likely be a need for a multi-sig at some point for specific specific things in different token programs, just to have this policy out there for folks to reference was a priority for us. Any questions? Okay, great. Then we will actually move right along to the main show today. You might have already seen the Cat Mentor mods post on the forum that Rafa posted a few weeks ago now. You've likely heard us mention it over on calls or linked in various notes and things over the last few weeks as well. You have heard us talk about Cat Mentors and the kind of additional modularity that was added with the Cat Mentor v2. In addition to that, there have been some other needs that have appeared and become very, very clear for needed modularity for Cat Mentors. And this is where the Cat Mentor mods discussion kind of came about, and I thought it would be a great idea for Rafa to say a little bit more about that and maybe provide a few examples to go over on the call today. So Rafa, I will share my screen here and pass
Excellent.
the mic over to you.
Okay, and so I think as a brief intro and a bit of, I guess, deep lore in terms of the cat mentors. So I think it was Gabe Shapiro, I think Gabe was on the call, who was working with Jeff Thompson last year, who kind of first came up with this concept of, thinking about custody less like governance. And when we think about like, why this is really valuable is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to acknowledge that governance systems, more so than transferring assets, what they actually have is thinking about like rights management. And so the CAP Minter is really about how do you enable rights management so that the outcome of rights management is actually what I would call mint on demand. So you're delegating rights, so then you get mint on demand at the end of it. But I think that theory, that nugget of insight, is easier. I think it's quite groundbreaking to realize that, and a little bit harder to kind of untangle in terms of what it means on a day-to-day basis for tooling and for this. So we're going to talk through a couple of things. So I'm calling this a mint on demand framework. I'm sure in a couple of years, as people see this YouTube video, maybe it's called something different because ZKsync will evolve. But what's happening here is, again, rights assignment is replacing tokens custody and transfers. We have a core contract, which is the CAP Minter, that has supply boundaries and time controls like start and end date. We've got Minter mods that have reusable logic in terms of constraints and extensions. And so programs can be modular, auditable, and self-executing. And soon, we need a public burn function or additional contract, but also unused tokens that are minted. We want to be able to return them to the initial token supply, which is really cool. So let's jump into this. So Minter modifiers or Minter mods. The term is inspired by gaming mods and video games, and these are composable constraints and extensions. So there's a couple of different design principles here which are really important. One is because we want to think about them as middleware, like small contracts that wrap Minter token, CAP Minter to add logic. And what we want them is to be able to be stacked, reordered, and removed. So we want to make governance programmable in kind of like a daisy chain type of way. So here you have an example where you have a CAP Minter, then you have a rate limiter mod, you have a trigger mod that then you execute a target contract. And we're gonna talk through these in a second. Now, but what's happening here is the CAP Minter itself is now you're creating a little stack. And if you can imagine, it's like a valve or a gauge. You have a rate limit that says, oh, you can mint only X amount per week or X amount per day. And then you have a trigger mod that basically says, okay, when I click the mint button, these other things have to happen, either before the mint or after the mint, which is quite cool. So this creates a type of daisy chain, but don't be fooled by thinking about this as only one stack. The CAP Minters are nested frameworks, so you can have one parent CAP Minter, but then you can have kind of like a mermaid or an octopus type of like a bunch of different tentacles moving in different directions that are all feeding off the CAP Minter. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand here. So this is what Minter mods are. They're composable constraints and extensions that create stackable environments, and over time, what you're trying to do is you're creating some constraints, so valves like a rate limiter and eligibility module, but also extensions like hooks, similar to Uniswap before, where you have like before mint and after mint. So yeah, we can scroll down. So let's think about a tangible example here of something that might happen. So you have the ZK token contract. We're granting a minter role via the token governor to a CAP Minter. Let's say it has 100 ZK, a program cap. And then you have a safety valve, so a rate limit that says the maximum you can mint from this program is 10 ZK per day. And then you create maybe a seasonal cap minter to say, okay, for this specific season, we're going to allocate 30 ZK. So in the season, the maximum you can mint is 10 ZK per day, but you have 30 ZK total. And then suddenly you have a trigger mod that says, okay, when someone clicks mint, let's deploy a distribution contract, which is pre-funded, so that, I don't know, there's a distribution incentives or whatever it is that's taking place. And what's kind of cool with this is because you have this trigger, it doesn't matter what the contract is from a different environment. You're doing this without ever holding custody of the tokens. So as an administrative group, you're basically triggering the setup of a distribution process without ever touching the tokens. We're still learning, but I think something that is becoming very real is the fact that it is very much possible for an operations team to manage a token program without ever having access to the tokens directly. And this is really, really cool because traditionally, in most organizations, you have to, like the administrative team has to at some point have direct control over the tokens. They have access to a transfer function. And in this case, we aren't, because what we're doing is we're delegating rights and then triggering a contract which acknowledges those rights and then requests basically a deposit into that specific contract. This entire framework, because it's stackable and composable, means that we can create a bit of developer standards for minter mods. So, as long as we have a contract that has an admin, a pause or cancel URL, it has a minted event, and it has a target minter and basically the minting contract. You basically can stack these contracts all together. We'll publish the exact kind of developer standards when we're done with them because they're still in development. But what this means is we can create these type of like Legos that anybody can kind of just create a daisy chain that connects to the Cap Minter framework and therefore can take advantage of, can trigger and react to minting rights delegations. So we'll share that a little bit more. If you scroll down, I want to talk about so scroll down a little bit more to the rate limit. Yep. So the rate limit here, you define the period and the amount per period. And this basically prevents like front loading the entire cap. And this is really ideal for sub programs, but specifically what it means is you can you can trade off security. So instead of having like a 3 out of 5, not a 3 out of 5, but maybe a 5 out of 7 multisig in control of a cap and control a specific flow, you can say the maximum you can mint ever is, I don't know, 1 ZK per day. So you can probably have a much lower type of like complexity in terms of admin controls because you have like a security valve in place. And then the trigger mod. So if you scroll down to the trigger mod that we talked about before, you can assign a target address using a specific function selector and call data, and then this basically like triggers the execution. We'll share this Notion doc. We'll just make it public so people can like review it. And the Factory Labs team is gonna share a post on the forum soon about the trigger. We're just doing a couple final edits to make sure that we got all the right documentation in place. So pretty exciting stuff. So if we scroll up and maybe land on the program example, maybe we can take some questions. Yeah, the incentive program stack incentive. Yeah, actually leave it there. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Any questions with regards to this? I know I just downloaded a bunch of information, so a lot to take in. No questions. Okay. Well, seems like we did a good job at explaining it, I guess, or no one understood. Either way, we're good to go.
I just had the same thought. I was like, they're either stunned or very confused or both.
Or we'll see. But if you guys have questions with regards to this, let us know. We're also obviously a big fan of talking about the trade-offs between the different types of programs with other entities and organizations. I guess the one thing that I will mention is you can have an on-chain organization can do both having custody-based governance and rights-based governance. It's not an either or. You can actually have both. ZKsync, we started with rights management, but it's also we might have to have custody of tokens later on. You think about GAP3, maybe there's tokens sent to the token governor, and then we'll also have like custody of those governance. So something to think about.
Yeah, no, I'll mention it in the chat, but I'll just mention it here again as well. If you do have questions or comments in regards to the cat mentor mods specifically, please leave them on the forum post that I shared in the chat. So it's the cat mentor framework update, the R&D on mentor mods, and ZK token return. Just so we have everything captured in one place, and everybody also has public access to the questions and the discussion as well.
And then one note, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but there is going to be an announcement in the next couple days about how ZKsync enables private interoperable chains. So stay tuned for that. I think I'm sure it'll be on Twitter and potentially I'm not 100% sure, there might be a blog post. But pretty exciting stuff. I know that we talked about zip 11 and version 28, and I'd encourage folks to read through kind of the pretty insane technological advancements which are getting shipped right now.
Also, if you are reading through it and are wondering, or maybe possibly confused or wondering what exactly this will mean, please do let us know, and we're happy to organize, maybe we can ask Porter to come on and do another fun little video or explanation. And yeah, just in regards to zips in general, just a reminder, if anything is unclear, because not everybody's a dev, myself included, we want this information to be accessible and digestible for everyone so they know what they're voting on. So please just let us know if there's anything that we can do to help folks digest these upgrades, these bigger protocol upgrades.
Yeah, and I have one more announcement I forgot to add to the agenda, but we'll talk about it next week. We're going to do a veto test with the Guardians. So I know Gabe is on the call. He probably already saw the document, but we're going to be doing a veto with the token program governor. So this is going to be like a quote unquote live test in production. There will be an actual proposal. It won't have any call data. Guardians are going to test out, making sure that we have the right level of liveness and interface usability to be able to execute the veto. So yeah, you'll see that hit the forum as well, probably next Monday, with on-chain target of next Wednesday, I believe. If anybody has any questions, just also feel free to reach out. Just post on the forum. Should be relatively simple.
Great. Okay. Any other questions or comments that anyone wanted to raise before we close it out? Okay, cool. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and for Raid for presenting earlier, and Rafa for presenting, of course, as well. I will have the call recording and notes up tomorrow, and yeah, we will see you folks online. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Shelby.
Bye, guys.